how you found yourself in this trajectory of energy efficiency and sustainability.
Shout out to Eastland Career Center. That was really what kind of set my feet.
What is drafting? I don't even know if I quite.
We're drafting ideas, whether it's in a
Working at Harvard in the transportation department, and I just felt lost.
I'm Marcus Hazelwood, and welcome to Clear Haze Exchange.
As you do energy, you start to realize that energy is more of an alchemy.
We have started to move beyond sustainability and head towards regenerative.
Sustainable construction, sustainable operation, two different things, but I think they will get there the same way.
Marcus knows that you're not going to throw water into the room immediately when you're talking energy.
Sustainability isn't just an industry. I was able to see how it was more of a lifestyle.
It was great to work in a place that encouraged learning and academics.
So any large organization undertaking sustainability initiative should approach it the same way they would approach any transformation program.
Through energy modeling and commissioning and throwing in some other sustainability aspects into it. So it was an innovative program at the time. And then the lead rating system came along, and there was a growing demand from developers and architects to get help with this new rating system. And that went beyond what was allowed under this regulated utility program.
Welcome to Clear Haze Exchange with another episode. I'm super excited to have someone very special on today. I wanted to take this time and take the opportunity to introduce a little bit more of myself and how I came to the industry, what my kind of journey was, my own story into this field. And I thought, what better person to discuss this with, ask myself questions in a way, what better person to do this than my wife, Stephanie Hazelwood. So thank you for joining the show today.
Okay.
So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm glad I get to put you in the hot seat.
Since you've been with me on my journey through this whole sustainability, energy, this career kind of track that I've been on, I kind of wanted to allow you to kind of ask me questions, but also from your perspective, seeing this firsthand on my journey, different things that you may see on questions that you may have for me. It would be interesting for me to see it that way and answer organically.
Yes. Speaking of organics, this is the Clear Haze Exchange.
Correct.
I just wanted to make sure I was on the right podcast. I just wanted to make that clear to the audience. I'm excited to be a guest on your podcast because I watched you build this podcast, and I know we have been wanting to do a podcast since about 2020, even before our daughter was born.
Yeah.
We have 2 kids, 4 and 2. And so I'm super excited for you. And I know that you have really taken off in your career, I would say within the last 10 years, 8 to 10 years. So perhaps we should go back years and years ago and how you found yourself in this trajectory of energy efficiency and sustainability. Maybe take it back to high school, because I know that you went to a career center.
Yes.
And that was kind of the foundation that set the pace for your next jobs and so forth.
Yeah. So I started out in high school. Shout out to Eastland Career Center. That was really what kind of set my feet and set the foundation of where I'm at really now, because I had the opportunity in high school to take a design drafting course. It kind of got my mind thinking about what I wanted to do from a career standpoint, and diving into that. Drafting is very broad. You can do drafting for a lot of different things. And
what is drafting? I don't even know if I quite.
So drafting is really drafting your ideas. The word drafting ideas, whether it's in a modeling software or on paper. In the older days, it was drafting it on paper. You think about in the building world, drawings. So drafting up your ideas before you actually bring them into action to a actually real world thing. So in that drafting course, I learned a lot of the mechanical side of drafting, a lot of different areas, whether it was just metals, drafting different pieces of metals, structures. So I learned drafting, and I thought maybe I'll design cars from this. And what ended up happening is after high school, I thought, well, maybe I'll go to school for landscape architecture, maybe architecture. I like to doing 3D models. But that drafting course kind of gave me the ability to get in with an architect. And I started out with an architect doing his drafting. I did some 3D models for some interior spaces, a lounge that I specifically remember building up for him. And from that architect, I moved from that architect to an engineering firm, which is a big A, little E, which means big architectural firm, but little engineering group inside there. And so with that engineering firm, that's when I started to get into mechanical design and the building world a little bit more in depth. So I was drafting plumbing diagrams, working with the engineers and building the mechanical design, the duct work. That was the area where I started to learn buildings. And there were some early stages of green building design to where we needed to understand the preliminary calculations for outdoor air, introducing outdoor air into an indoor space. So understanding the specifications around how we purify that air, clean that air, heat that air, cool that air. This was all introduced to me in that, getting into the career.
So you went from the Career Center, high school,
mm-hmm.
to working at an architectural and engineering firm, basically right out of high school.
Yes. I hadn't finished the degree yet. I was just drafting, and that kind of got me into the industry.
So you decided that you weren't going to do landscaping as a career.
Yes.
Even though I know you like to landscape, and you did do some landscaping courses.
Yeah, still doing that today.
Yes, he is very particular about his landscaping in our front yard and backyard.
Yeah.
So he knows a lot of the technical names, or the scientific names, I should say, for
plants. I learned a lot in that
plants.
class.
Yeah.
The Latin names for different plant species. But yeah, so
you did take a class.
Yes.
But that wasn't where you didn't focus your time and energy on landscaping. You were at the architecture firm. From there, you moved to a big A, little E, meaning there's more architecture, or it focused more on architecture.
Yes.
It focused more on architecture than engineering.
Correct.
And you are part of the engineering department or group.
Yeah.
And this is, I believe, where you were at this firm when we met.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember, you were working. I didn't necessarily know where you were working, but when I thought you were finally going to, will we exchange contact information, and maybe you would ask me out on a date. Instead, you gave me your business card, which was impressive.
Yeah.
And you had a drawing on the back.
Oh, so this was when I started doing drafting. So I was working with a firm, but I was also doing drafting and with other engineers. So I did some. So I was wanting to feel like I was starting my own business. So I had a side business to where I was working with other engineers and doing their drafting as well. So pretty ambitious.
Yes.
That was where Haze Enterprises.
Shameless plug to Haze Enterprises.
Yeah. Was initially generated back in 2008.
Yeah.
So that was the thought, where I also worked with some people that wanted to do inventions, and they wanted me to build, their concept in AutoCAD so that they could present it. So a lot of things around drafting is kind of where it kind of got me into this field. But so after that firm, where I first got into sustainability, started to develop sustainability,
because that wasn't
aspects.
Necessarily your focus. I don't really remember you talking much about sustainability.
No.
At that.
I was just still learning. Yeah, I still was learning about the field. This is something I want to stay in. And
was that
and
something
still,
that firm focused on? at all?
No, not as much. Sustainability was kind of still, it was still a new thing around the 2008, at least, especially in the Midwest. So there wasn't a lot of aggressive sustainability projects. They were focused more on restoration on the architectural side. So from there, I went to another firm that was an engineering firm, and that engineering firm had a group that was their energy and sustainability group. And this is where I was introduced into energy modeling. And so at this point, I started feeling like, okay, I kind of like this energy modeling thing because I'm working with the architectural side. I'm actually touching on some pieces with the engineer and pulling from information I understood from my previous job. But then from energy modeling and sustainable practices, I'm also thinking about the landscape portion. I'm thinking about the indoor quality, thinking about environmental design. So this is where it really got me into this space of energy and sustainability consulting. So that from energy modeling and beginning to manage, and this is where I got my LEED certification, leadership in energy and environmental design. That's where I got that certification, managed projects around that. So the built environment was where I really kind of jumped in around 2011, 12. So that's kind of where I started to understand, okay, I think I can navigate this. I didn't want to go back to school for engineering, and it wasn't a desire, that wasn't a desire of mine to go back to school for engineering, but with the energy modeling, I was working with more environmentally focused aspects of the design, but still a bit heavy into the mechanical side, which I didn't mind.
So tell me about when you were definitely not at your desk at your job, looking at other opportunities. That's not at all what you were doing. When you applied for a position that was essentially what you were doing at the last firm you worked for in Columbus before we moved.
Yeah.
You definitely weren't at work when you applied for a job that was essentially the same thing that you were doing at your firm in Columbus for Harvard University.
Yeah.
And you sent the application off,
Yeah.
essentially forgot about it. And then what happened?
I heard back from Harvard, and they were asking me about, the application that I sent in, and seemed to be really interested in my experience. And I went through an interview. This is when Skype was a thing, and I did a Skype interview. I was like, wow, I'm doing an interview on Skype. This is different. This is around 2013. So Teams and all the virtual worlds weren't there yet, but did an interview on Skype.
Was this the interview that you did with someone with the picture of just your mouth?
Oh yeah, I had. That's a side story. There was a picture I had on my Skype because I didn't think about it as anything more than there was a close-up picture on my face. I think it was my nose or something around there. I just left it on there, and so I logged onto my Skype for this interview, and the first thing they probably see is this picture is close up into my nose. And it's like, that was a bit
somebody
embarrassing.
ask you, like, is this you with
Yes.
with the nose?
So shout out to Joel McKellar, who was the person that interviewed me, and he was the one that saw my Skype.
That's funny.
But
He ended up being
my boss at Harvard University for the energy analyst position.
I know. We'll move away from your picture, your Skype profile picture. But you applied, you went through an interviewing process, and we decided, well, you got the job. They asked you if you wanted to take the job. And we had just we had built a house, and we hadn't even been in it 2 years.
Yeah.
When Marcus got the offer to work at Harvard University and within the campus services organization with Green Building Services.
Yeah. So the group was called Green Building Services, and we were essentially a group within Harvard University that would serve all the schools sort of like a consultant. All this, it's pretty decentralized at Harvard University, so all the schools kind of have their own budget and they develop all their initiatives, their capital projects individually. So this group within Harvard served as the kind of internal energy consultant, and specifically my role was focused on measurement and verification, developing some type of plan for measuring and verifying the energy and operations of buildings that were recently designed. So we would take a energy model, calibrate it, which means weather normalize it, take that energy model and then evaluate how it's actually performing against what it was initially designed to perform, and build a process to evaluate that, manage that, so that different pieces and parts can be adjusted, whether it's lighting, power, plug loads, or the HVAC systems, heating and cooling systems. So that was, all the kind of development of all that. And in addition to that, I had the opportunity to, which at that point I hadn't finished my undergrad degree, and I was looking to figure out, I don't want to keep going to school when I don't really know, I don't want to pay for something that I really have no idea what I want to do. So this opportunity also presented me the opportunity to finish my undergrad degree, and I did that in environmental studies. So went there to take a position as an energy analyst, work with the university, but also
you got to go to school.
Got to go to school for about
at Harvard Extension.
30, for about, what was it, $40 per course?
For
the perks of
for cheap,
there.
very cheap for sure.
So that track was part of the kind of growth and development of my passion for this world of energy and sustainability, because I got the opportunity to work in it at the university. I was implementing a lot of very aggressive sustainable practices. There was the green building standards that we were developing in our group at that time for capital projects for the built environment. There were minimum LEED certifications. Back to that LEED piece, we were supporting the certification across the schools for capital projects. So I was heavily involved with LEED. There was commissioning, which is making sure that buildings are actually operating the way they were designed to, by going through some rigorous testing to make sure that they're actually functioning the way they're expected to. So there was commissioning, there was LEED certification, and of course I did some energy modeling. That was one of the expertise pieces of my expertise that I was brought in to kind of help support. There was energy incentives that we were helping achieve through using energy models. Energy models kind of can project that energy consumption use so that you can validate with the utility to say that, hey, we are reducing this building by X amount of energy, X amount of dollars. So give us the dollars to put these upgrades or upgrade this HVAC system or the lighting system. So that energy model kind of helped validate that process. So there's a lot of experience throughout there, and then coupling that with school, which you end up going to school as well. It was an opportunity for both of us. So you ended up going to school with me. So we were both in school, going to Harvard and working at Harvard. I forgot to mention that you actually got a position at Harvard too. So we're both at Harvard, working there and going to school there and figuring life out. And so,
and I mean, it was a unique opportunity that I think it was hard to pass up, despite the newly built house and so forth. And Harvard, I think, for both of us, presented a special opportunity, but especially for you in your field, because what made not only working and studying at Harvard so special, I would say, is just at least the Boston area, Boston, Cambridge area. They were, that's a region where there's a lot of cutting edge thinking, and sustainability. You know what sustainability is. You know what environmentally friendly and conscious efforts are.
Yeah.
And the Midwest, at least in Ohio, we weren't quite there. So we transitioned to a brand new environment where the entire region was recognizing these efforts that you happen to be working in. So that was kind of cool to see, everything from the technical aspects that you do with your job and your career, but paper bags. And it was very, very, very common for people to bring their grocery bags with them to the grocery store. And that was something we weren't used to. And we would definitely get all the plastic bags, and they came in handy for walking the dog.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was unique, and it certainly opened my mind to at least recognizing sustainability and efficiency, building efficiency as well, or energy efficiency as well. So I think that was kind of cool to kind of live your world a little bit.
Yeah, and there was a lot of learning on both of our ends. So even though I was engulfed in this as a career, it was like more learning just in the living. So like you said, like when we moved to Boston, it's different from in the Midwest and a little bit more progressive from the standpoint of sustainability and practices in your just normal environment. So I think that kind of helped me understand and build my passion in my career as well. Is I didn't want to just have a job just to be going to work and doing a job. I wanted to actually experience something that I began building more of a passion for, which was sustainability. And sustainability isn't just an industry. I see it. I was able to see how it was more of a lifestyle. And if I could make it my lifestyle, then I could apply it better in my career. Yeah. So that's what I began to realize as we kind of navigated this world.
Yeah. And Harvard was a unique, I keep saying the word unique. I only had 1 cup of coffee, so my vocab isn't very expansive today, but it was great to work in a place that encouraged learning and academics.
Yeah.
Our groups, we worked in the same department, so to speak, that was comprised of like 13 different units. You were in green building services. I started out in transportation, and you had started school, and I really wasn't interested in doing school.
Yeah.
I had already had my undergrad. I was like, I don't even know what I would do. Within my first year at Harvard, my first boss said, you need to go to commencement. Everybody should experience commencement, Harvard commencement. And I did, and it was so special. And they just have a very spectacular recognition ceremony for their graduates at Harvard Yard. And I made up my mind then that I was going to do this with you. Yeah. I was like, I want to graduate with my husband, and I want to experience this with you.
And that's exactly what we did.
That's what we did.
In
so that was
2018. We both graduated together.
Yeah, that was a very, very fun experience that certainly we'll have that forever. And thanks to my first boss I don't even know if I ever told him that really gave me the push to just, really want to do this alongside you.
Yeah.
And so anyway.
And it was just a culture around the school, especially with the group that I was involved with in the Office for Sustainability, OFS. We were in the same department, and that group was within the Department of Campus Services.
Yeah, you guys are like buddies.
Yeah, so we had a lot of interaction with that group because obviously there was the advocacy piece of sustainability on campus and actually functions and operations. But our group was a little bit more on the technical side, understanding energy utility bills, the engineering aspect of it, and supporting that. But
you guys even worked with my group, transportation.
Yeah, we worked with transportation. So there was a lot of culture around sustainability that was shared across all the departments, and so we interacted a lot, in that way.
Yeah, that was a fun time.
But I think on the school side. With me, I was finishing an undergrad in environmental studies, and there was a lot of professors there that great courses, but introducing us to some of the science and chemicals and products and paints and carpets, all these different things. We started to get exposed to some of both on the research side and the stuff that I was learning. And I was like, wow, our couch that we have at home has flame retardants in it. So let's get this thing out of here. So right. Thinking about that and then starting to apply it to our little world in Boston was new because it wasn't only just the luxury materials, stain repellents, and all these different things that had chemicals, but also thinking about the foods. So we started eating even better. We started thinking about what we were eating, what we were consuming, and trying to be just conscious, not necessarily trying to be these, eating the perfect thing. There is no, track of the best way, but being conscious, becoming more knowledgeable, and becoming more conscious and making better decisions. And that progress was
The
great.
lifestyle just itself
Yeah.
basically forced us to either walk or ride our bikes everywhere.
Right. So I got very thin. I come home, my friends would be like, wow. Because I would be, my brother would talk about, it's like, well, yeah, I lost my baby face. No, but I was thin because I was riding my bike back and forth to work, riding it all across campus. And if I wasn't riding my bike, I was walking somewhere. But it just talked about, the value of exercise. So this is all kind of coming full circle in a way. This career track was not just a career track for sustainability. So as this stuff was happening, I think back to where my passion was developed for this was in my lifestyle. So as we developed this, it was like, wow, we need to be more conscious of this. We need to be more conscious of that. And at the same time, I'm working in my field and working to get a degree. I'm sharing what I'm learning. You're sharing what you're learning. And you're seeing how even sustainability practices were transformed in your major of journalism. So understanding, to how different concepts relate, because it's not just, again, sustainability isn't just a field. It's a broad, statement that can apply to all the different fields.
And it wasn't where we were just like, oh my gosh, we're doing everything wrong.
Right.
It's just we became more aware of how to make small changes just so we can live a healthier life.
Right.
So we put those practices into our home and our diet and so forth. And you got opportunities. You were even asked to, what were you? A master's class? You were taught students studying to get their graduate degrees.
Yeah. And high performance. It was high performance buildings. So because of the space I was in, I was asked by a professor to support their class. So we kind of graded papers, but also provided additional insight to the course. So that's where I was able to kind of dive a little bit more into the teaching side of things and understand the process of really education from the perspective of being on the platform, teaching it versus just receiving it. So that was an interesting process, but it came natural because I was able to teach what I was learning and had already learned in my experience. So it wasn't something to where I had it all. It was just something I had been doing for years already, and then just applying these same concepts that I'm working on my daily and into papers, into supporting the knowledge building of that course.
And I didn't even mention that you graduated with honors.
I did.
So stick it to all the teachers who thought, oh, there's Marcus, he's just a class clown. But now look at you all grown up. Graduating with honors.
Well, I would say this:
Harvard University.
Of course, you're gonna want to talk about that piece, but I would say there was a change in my desire to pursue knowledge. When I was in college, I was just there, like, I don't even know what I want to do. So my interest,
when you went right after high school.
Yeah, when I went after high school, I was just like, I don't really care. I don't know what I want to do. There just wasn't a passion for it. So when I went to Harvard and started to build that passion and knew I had enough confidence by gaining a position at Harvard, and then also what I'd learned already and understanding it. Now I'm going into school with an understanding and also a goal. It's like, okay, I want to finish this because this is how it will help my career, how it'll sustain my family, and also my passion. So there was a different posture I had. So I wanted to learn, and I wanted to hear more, and I wanted to add more, just because I had a little bit more of a passion for it. So
it was special to see. It was encouraging to me because I loved seeing that in you, and it even took you to St. John.
Yeah, I did an exciting course. I never thought I'd do a research class, but this was literally a research class to where the class flew out to St. John, Virgin Islands.
Without me.
Yes, without you. Beautiful, beautiful island.
Without me.
Without you. And we were on but you wouldn't like the the
It's
living
true.
quarters.
I wouldn't
So
want the sleeping.
I'll say that it was beautiful. It was a research class. So we slept in these cabins to where we were
It was not
on a
an
bed, and it was
all-inclusive.
at night. It was humid. There were bugs. There were all this. So you get through that. But during the day, there was beautiful. We snorkeled. We looked at the coral reefs, and we were understanding the kind of environmental impacts from hurricanes. You know, what the impact to the under the sea, things under the sea, what the degradation of the coral reefs, all these different things that happen from either human activities or just different environmental things. But that was an exciting course.
And then, like, right, not too long after you left, like within a few months, there was a pretty bad hurricane. I can't remember the name of it, but it pretty much decimated that island.
I took a lot of video underwater and of the island, but it's rebuilt since then. But there was a huge hurricane that came and really kind of destroyed a lot of things. But the environment, it rebuilds, it adapts, just different pieces of the environment. So it's naturally made to adapt. And so a lot of the things that we researched, we were understanding how the environment recovers from natural disasters like that. So I think that there's a lot of value in understanding what you're doing from a career standpoint in order to sustain your long-term career. And I think this is what built my passion in wanting to have a podcast like this, is because a lot of these concepts around sustainability and energy efficiency, they get really, really, really confusing in a way for some people, to the point where I then try to talk about it or explain the value in it, and it becomes, almost like, yeah, sure, because there's a perspective or maybe a culture behind just that word, sustainability. You're just gonna, that's gonna cost a lot. Oh, you're just gonna come in and do all these things that are gonna cost a lot. They're not gonna be worth anything. They're gonna, that idea. I wanted to kind of clear the haze around that and help people understand, because for me, it's been an amazing journey to see what the value is, not just a word sustainability, but there's value in applying that concept strategically in the built environment, which is the area I'm working in. But not only the built environment, I would say that sustainability it really starts with, from a personal standpoint, and being able to sustain your life from a personal standpoint will enhance your ability to sustain or make contributions to helping sustain a larger organization, because then you are able to understand the concepts, understand the values. If you don't experience things personally, it's hard for you to advocate for them in a large, organization or have a passion about them. So I think because of my personal experience in sustainability and applying it to my lifestyle has enhanced my ability to contribute to larger organizations, but also it's what gives me the desire and the passion to build this podcast, to kind of help people understand as much as I can, but also learn from other people's experiences that build my passion and hopefully build others' passion listening to it.
And I would say that that's a really good point of understanding, because we're back in Columbus now. We've moved back, Central Ohio area. We were in the Boston area for 8 years, and you did work after Harvard, you worked for 2 other firms.
Yes.
And since we've been back in Columbus, I've worked a little closer with you in terms of, I won't say the day-to-day, but I've worked closer with you, with your day-to-day. And it does seem like that is almost the what needs to be unlocked in the minds of the decision makers when it comes to making, going ahead and giving you the green light to support their building efficiency efforts and sustainability and lead and so forth, all the technical stuff that you do. But it is an understanding, I think, that is maybe lacking in some minds or companies and organizations, and maybe just the region. I know that Columbus is making efforts to I guess be a little bolder in their initiatives lately, because it's a sign of the times. But I do think, at least here, there is that element of understanding that I think needs to be pursued a little more stronger. And I think that would really help. So, the understanding component and the relationship building, I think, is very important to you. And that's one thing that you've been really good at and have been admired at the various companies that you work for, is your ability to foster relationships and trust. And so it only makes sense that you have a podcast. And then also for me to be on it because I've taught him everything he knows, basically.
Of course.
So that
the piece to that, I would add to that piece, is that you saying you taught me everything I know. Besides the reality of what that sounds like, I think sustaining us and you being able to support me in this is what enables me to successfully achieve, the passions and the drives that I have. Being able to have you in my corner, I think, has contributed to that. And it's all part of that kind of sustainability piece. I mean, in energy efficiency, efficiently using the energy I have to produce and develop something, both career-wise and at home. Because if it's not supported from in terms of a marriage, if it's not supported from your spouse, it's much harder to navigate. And of course, anybody knows that anyone who has challenges in their personal life, they often kind of lean into their professional life. And I think because of that balance we've been able to try and achieve in both our marriage and of course we have 2 kids now, I think that's been a very, very important part of our career track and my career track. So
we're very blessed. This is our dream, to be able to do work together and build something together. Yeah. So I am happy to be your partner.
Yeah.
Are you gonna
partner?
Cry?
Is that
I think you should cry now.
Okay. No, you said partner. That was a Boston accent.
Oh yeah, I kind of forgot. Let that slip. Partner. I won't do it because I do terrible Boston accents, but you do pretty good ones. They're much better. But people. So when we first started dating and we got married and you were at the firm you talked about, the big A, little E firm, you'd pick up the phone. I'd call you at work or not, in case one of your old managers was listening. And you'd pick up the phone and you would say, "This is Smarkus." Because you would combine, it was just one word. This is Smarkus. So I called you Smarkus for a long time. But in Boston,
that's where that generated.
Harvard is mostly in Cambridge, but anyway, still very close. Boston, Cambridge, all those little areas, they're close by each other. So you do get some thick, heavy Boston accents, and people would say Marcus. Hey Marcus, how are you?
Because the A's are ah.
Yeah, Marcus. So now he's Marcus.
Marcus, how are you?
How are you? And a couple times it sounded like you would say how are you to people, and I would look at you like, what?
I would, sometimes because, relating with people, I often will take on, I guess, small characteristics,
so relatable,
and respond with them.
Yeah, I mean, to your defense, we were around it, and I had some troubles early on understanding what people were saying on my job, and since I had to support people, I needed to understand what was being told and asked of me so I could fulfill.
I think
you're
talking. I think you have to share the small sample, and maybe we close with this. You were asked for a large binder.
Oh, yes. So this was, I would say, within a few months of me working at Harvard in the transportation department, and I just felt lost because I knew nothing about Harvard, I knew nothing about Cambridge, and I knew nothing about transportation. My background was public relations, and then I did some philanthropy work for a bank. So I knew nothing. And so I was asked to order something, and I was like, what? Order, meaning I had to order supplies. This is what I was being asked, like if I could order supply. So I was in the transportation department. This person supported the parking office, so the garages, the parking facilities, and so forth. And they asked me to order something, and I looked at them and I said, what did you ask me to do?
I need a large binder.
What is that?
A large binder.
Okay. And my response was, I'm not sure. I don't even think I can say it without laughing. I'm not sure what a large binder is, but I can find out. So my mind was like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what he's saying. Maybe it's related. Maybe it's like a lodge. Like I heard lodge, Lodge, lodge. So I'm thinking maybe there's this, I don't know, little doodad that they have in the parking garages that have all this paperwork. And so anyway, as I was saying, I don't know what a lodge binder is. And I'm looking at this guy's face and he's like, what?
What is wrong with you?
Yes, what is wrong with you? I said, oh, a large binder. And I said, oh, yes, I can do that. But that was embarrassing, but that was one of a few.
That was an introduction to the Boston world, because there was a lot of heavy accents in Boston. I worked in an area I worked in the steam plant, so there was a lot of Bostonians out there, great people too. That had the heavy accents, so we had to, with our Midwest way of talking and saying, again, this is kind of another way to help us think outside of the boxes, understand how different people think, the different ways that they communicate, whether it's an accent. It's just so much outside of, if you grow up, I want to say in a bubble, but when you grow up in one place, you get used to and accustomed to certain things. But then when you move outside of that area, you start to get exposed to different things, which kind of help you understand, okay, wow, that's a different perspective. That's a different way of saying large,
right?
Large. Large.
I could use an R.
Right.
I mean,
so those are
necessary.
So I think that there's a whole lot to gain from listening to people. And that's what I feel like I like to do, is to hear people and understand, what they're trying to, not necessarily that we understand it, but from a different standpoint, understand what they're trying to communicate, not necessarily from a language perspective, but what they're trying to communicate and trying to achieve. And especially with working with different organizations, what is the initiatives that they're trying to achieve? And then how do you communicate amongst the people that have been there for years and years? They work a certain way. How do you communicate with these people to understand, how do I help you achieve what you need to achieve while also achieving the overall organization goals? And I think with that, there's a value in understanding people. And I think with this podcast, the intent and the hope is to help to interview different people, understand their perspectives, understand what their success is, how they've been able to achieve certain things, but also hopefully allow and enable people to hear those stories, see those perspectives, and understand, digest, clear the haze, so to speak, on those things, and inspire them to achieve and view sustainability initiatives, energy efficiency initiatives in a different light. And that is the success of that would then add value not only to that person, but to larger organizations. When you have people a common goal and people have a common understanding, there's less hiccups, there's less challenges. There's always going to be challenges, but there's a little bit more in syncness about pursuing sustainability initiatives, climate action, taking those big plans and putting strategy to those. It enables a lot.
So they're attainable. Yeah. So they're attainable. Well, and just a side note, we met some really great people. I know we were making fun of the accents, but we had some phenomenal relationships and friendships built, and thankful, and they've carried over to, lasting relationships since we've been back,
to this
and
day.
we're literally going on 3 years. Like tomorrow,
Yeah.
3 years tomorrow, we were driving. Our moving van was packed up and leaving
Leaving
Arlington, Massachusetts, headed
to Massachusetts.
to Lewis Center.
Boston. We lived in Watertown. No, we lived in Cambridge first,
Cambridge.
then Watertown, then Arlington. So the Boston metro area, but Boston is
Well, it
certainly
wasn't Boston Metro. It was surrounded.
surrounding areas. So
And before I leave the mic, I'm having fun. I feel like I could do this. So give
You
me
can do
something
this.
to talk about.
we will. We'll continue.
Anyway, is there anything that, I mean, we kind of skipped over. We really talked about our time at Harvard because I think that really shaped your mindset in terms of really going after this career path and just making it more than a 9-to-5.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience about yourself? Other than the fact that this is a great podcast and everyone should listen, and studies show actually that the sound of your voice calms and just makes your days better. So I'm just putting it out there as a scientific fact as to why people should listen to this podcast. But anyway,
Sure,
about
sure.
yourself, go ahead.
Well, I would say to close, I would say that, again, as I've mentioned and probably talked about in different articles that I've, efforts that I've tried to put this knowledge and this passion into the public eye, whether it be through writing or through interactions with individuals. I think this is an opportunity to both still speak with individuals, but also hopefully reach others to help them see the value not only in what sustainability can provide, but the value in how it can add people's lives individually, and understand these concepts so that when they're talked about, they're not able to just kind of like, well, that's too deep, I don't understand it, if it's a technical kind of approach. But I think if we're able to grasp these concepts and understand them, they can be applied to all aspects of life, whatever career you're in. If it's in marketing, if it's in transportation, if it's in the food industry, energy efficiency, being able to be more efficient with your energy, whether it's your personal, your individual energy, or if it's buildings energy, whether it's a process, a manufacturing process, the energy used to produce, wherever it is, energy efficiency and sustaining the sustainability of your job as a husband or wife or a spouse or someone on a personal level, but also on a professional level, sustaining that and being able to understand concepts that can help enhance that is a message that I hope to bring and hope to add value to individuals' lives.
Well, you heard it here, folks. Wait, okay. How long have you been in this field? And you are...
I've been for about over 15 years. I've been working in this field, and
So he's
yeah.
really good at things, and he's an
I'm good
expert.
at things.
Well, specifically, he's really good at energy efficiency, and particularly in the built environment. And I think, anyway, I've already said it. You guys should listen to him. But thank you for having me on the show, Marcus.
Oh, thank you for coming on the show and helping pull out.
It was a lot.
It was a lot.
I've got lots of laundry, cooking. So
Yes. But with that said, we have now cleared the haze about energy efficiency and sustainability from my perspective, but also our perspective and our personal life and in business. So I hope this was entertaining and valuable to the listeners. And thanks for joining us. And we will look forward to the next episode. Thanks.
Bye.